Hi everyone, I am Aryana, an artist and a women's rights activist from Afghanistan, a country where today music and arts and women in general are slowly being eliminated from the society. First of all, I want to take a moment and express my appreciation and admiration to Dr. Kayana, University of Sheffield, and the amazing team who have put this great and much needed event together to make sure music and musicians of Afghanistan are not forgotten. Secondly, I wholeheartedly wish I could have been there in person with you all. However, while this speech of mine is being presented to you, I am most likely on the plane in the middle of my trip to Tashkent, Uzbekistan for a TV show recording. Anyway, I just want to get straight to the point, and I will not take much time to express the reasons because of which Taliban have banned music in Afghanistan, as it is obvious that this dark-minded group has a problem with anything and everything that is humane and progressive. Taliban, who are closely being mentored and controlled by the secret services of our neighboring country of Pakistan, have been taught how it is much easier to control and rule over a sad and depressed society rather than a bright and progressive one who can think for themselves and make their own decisions. Let's discuss the impacts of the ban of music by Taliban inside Afghanistan. The impact of a music ban imposed by the Taliban on musicians and their families is extremely severe and incomprehensible. I am in direct communication with many musicians inside Afghanistan right now, and I can tell you how they're being severely impacted in the following manners. Loss of livelihood. Musicians and their families have always depended on music as a source of income. Now that music is banned, they have lost their primary means of earning a living. This has led to financial hardship, unemployment, and poverty. In fact, the families and children of many musicians in Afghanistan are currently sleeping hungry at night. Forced displacement. In many cases, musicians and their families have been forced to leave their homes and communities to escape persecution or violence. This has resulted in displacement both internally, within the country, and as refugees seeking safety in other nations. Suppression of artistic expression. A music ban has stifled artistic expression and cultural diversity. Musicians are unable to create and share their art, which will have a long-term impact on our society's cultural heritage. Psychological and emotional toll. Musicians and their families are experiencing psychological and emotional distress due to the loss of their art form, threats, and fear or punishment. This has led to anxiety, depression, and other mental health issues. Impact on education. Many of our musicians have received formal training and education in music. A music ban has disrupted their educational opportunities and future prospects. Social isolation. Musicians have become isolated from their communities due to the ban, as they're often seen as symbols of cultural expression. This isolation has resulted in social exclusion and a loss of support networks. The Taliban's ban on music and cultural expression is a deeply concerning issue that infringes on basic human rights and freedoms. While the situation in Afghanistan can be challenging, there are several ways individuals and organizations can work towards addressing this ban and supporting those affected. Let's discuss some of these potential ways where we can make a difference. Number 1, raise awareness. Share information about the ban on social media and with your networks to raise awareness about the issue. Use relevant hashtags to reach a wider audience. Encourage media outlets and organizations to cover the story to generate more attention and put pressure on the Taliban. Number 2, support NGOs and human rights organizations. Contribute to organizations that are working to protect human rights and cultural expression in Afghanistan. These organizations often provide essential support to artists and musicians affected by the ban. Number 3, international pressure. Advocate for international organizations, governments, and institutions to condemn the ban and apply diplomatic pressure on the Taliban to respect human rights, including freedom of expression and cultural practices. Support sanctions or restrictions on the Taliban leadership until they demonstrate respect for these fundamental rights. Number 4, cultural preservation. Help document and preserve Afghan culture, including its music and art, to ensure that these traditions are not lost. This can involve supporting initiatives to record and archive Afghan music and cultural practices. Number 5, provide humanitarian assistance. Try reaching out directly to musicians who are suffering inside Afghanistan and provide them with financial assistance. The Afghan Artists Network, for example, is a reliable source for tracking musicians who are currently in the worst possible situation inside Afghanistan. Number 6, solidarity with Afghan artists. Share and promote the work of Afghan artists, musicians, and cultural figures, even if they're in exile. This can help amplify their voices and keep their art alive. Number 7, engage with international bodies. Encourage your governments and international organizations to engage with the Taliban leadership to discuss human rights concerns and the importance of cultural expression. Number 8, artistic collaboration and partnerships. Support international artistic collaborations and partnerships with Afghan artists and musicians, helping to showcase their work on a global stage. To wrap up my thoughts, I would like to mention 2 very simple items. Number 1, the world definitely needs to stand for Afghanistan's music and musicians against a dark force that is trying to eliminate the most normal and most humane entity known to human beings in general, which is music. And number 2, while in the long run, we need a united voice against the tyranny and oppression of Taliban to save and preserve Afghanistan's music, in the immediate short term, musicians and their families inside Afghanistan are suffering in the most horrible and most heartbreaking manner. I urge you and the world to take a drastic step to assist them in any way possible. Imagine if you were one of them inside Afghanistan along with your family and suffering from hunger and the worst, poverty. What would you expect from your colleagues and other humans around the world out there?